Hey Stargazers, welcome back. My name is Nick. I'm a theaters manager at the Adler Planetarium, and you're watching Skywatch Weekly. Well, happy fall to everyone in the Northern Hemisphere. We're officially past the equinox now, and I wanted to take this week to tie together some of the constellations that we've been introducing over the past few videos. A lot of the constellations in the fall sky are part of a famous ancient Greek myth. It's full of strange creatures, heroes and villains, and a very strange star that we'll talk about at the end of the show. Well, let's begin with Cassiopeia, our famous W shape in the sky. Cassiopeia is a circumpolar pattern of stars in mid-northern latitudes. So from places like Chicago, she never sets below the horizon. At this time of the year, she's in the northeast in the early evening. Cassiopeia is a queen, and she is the catalyst of our story. A little higher in the sky right now, much dimmer, but also circumpolar, is Cassiopeia's husband, Cepheus the king. A simple shape to look for is a drawing of a house with a square, and then the triangle roof points towards Polaris. We saw 2 weeks ago how their daughter Andromeda is making a nice appearance in the evening. Her two arcs of stars are joined together in the star Alpheratz, which forms one of the stars in the asterism of the square of Pegasus. This marks the body of the flying horse, Pegasus. Below him is the bright planet Mars right now, and even lower than that, rising about 3 hours after sunset tonight, is a sea monster named Cetus. Remember, he was part of the watery, dim section of the sky that we talked about a few weeks ago. Our final character is the hero Perseus. He's rising below Cassiopeia and Andromeda. We talked about him in connection with the Perseid meteor shower. He's up earlier now than in August, so you'll find him easily visible by about 2 hours past sunset. Depending on when you're out stargazing, a little bit later in the night especially, you might begin to see a few winter sky sights, the bright star Capella and the cluster of stars known as the Pleiades. These are unrelated to our story in the fall sky, but the later in the night you're up looking, the higher above the horizon they'll appear. So the drama playing out tonight all starts with Cassiopeia. She was a rather vain individual. She liked to brag about her beauty, and she claimed to be more beautiful than the sea nymphs, which understandably angered the sea nymphs, who embodied everything calm and beautiful about the sea. This also angered the god of the sea himself, Poseidon, who sent a sea monster, our friend Cetus, to ravage the kingdom. So the sea monster is presumably sinking ships and attacking beachgoers, which isn't great for public opinion. So the king, Cepheus, asks an oracle how he might get rid of the sea monster. Apparently the surest solution is to sacrifice your daughter to the sea monster. So Andromeda is chained to a rock by the sea in an act of political expediency and parental misjudgment. Things look pretty bad for Andromeda, but who should come along but Perseus the hero? Among his many exploits, Perseus is known for having slain the Gorgon with snakes for hair. You probably know her name, Medusa. The thing to remember about Medusa is that if you look at her, you turn to stone. So presumably he had this head in a bag or something like that, so he didn't leave a bunch of stone statues in his wake. Well, the death of Medusa had another side effect, the birth of Pegasus. The flying horse sprang from the body of Medusa and was the perfect ride for Perseus. So Perseus jumps on his new flying horse, he's soaring over the coastline, and he looks down and sees Andromeda chained to a rock. Well, like any good hero, he swoops down and attempts to free her. He's interrupted by the arrival of our sea monster, Cetus. Thinking quickly, Perseus takes the head of Medusa and shows it to the sea monster. The sea monster looks at the head of Medusa and is immediately turned to stone. So in summary, Perseus is the hero. He saves the day. Cetus, the sea monster, is slain. Andromeda, the princess, is rescued. Medusa, the Gorgon, is killed. Pegasus, the flying horse, is born. Cepheus, the king, it didn't do much. and hopefully Cassiopeia the Queen brags a little bit less about her beauty. So, a celestial soap opera of sorts being played out in the fall skies. Now, you may not see every star in these constellations where you live, but you should be able to trace out the lines of the story in the evening this season. I do want to talk a little bit more about the head of Medusa, or specifically the star that marks the head in the constellation of Perseus. This star is called Algol, which comes from an Arabic phrase roughly translated as demon's head. The star does behave somewhat strangely. It's what we call a variable star, so it gets brighter and dimmer in a regular cycle. Every 3 days or so, Algol dims noticeably over the course of about 5 hours, and then brightens back up over the next 5. The change is visible to the naked eye, but it takes a little bit of practice to really notice the difference. At its dimmest, though, Algol is less than half the brightness it normally is. So what's going on? We now know that Algol is what we call an eclipsing binary star. We've talked before about how lots of stars are in fact double or multiple star systems, and you can sometimes see that through backyard telescopes. Algol's pairing is very tight. You won't see this through a backyard scope. It's estimated these two stars are only about 1/6 the separation of the Sun and Mercury in our solar system. Their orbit also happens to align to our line of sight, so we see them eclipse. Every 3 days or so, the dimmer of the two stars goes in front of the brighter, blocking its light. And because less light is reaching us at that time, we see a dimmer point of light in the sky. This is modeled here in our planetarium software, but it's been seen directly by an array of telescopes on Mount Wilson in California. So, a mysterious winking star, with an explanation that's perhaps less ghoulish, but no less amazing to think about. My challenge for you this week, get out your star chart or stargazing app and find Algol. Notice its brightness compared to stars around it, and then check in with it every time you're looking at the sky. See if you can catch it when it's noticeably dimmer. If you want to know ahead of time what to expect, we've also included a link in the description where you can find out when it will appear dimmest. Here in Chicago, there's a nice minimum brightness in the early evening on October 3rd. But there are other occurrences at less convenient viewing times before and after that. Well, that's what we have for you this week. As always, don't forget to subscribe and look up with us every Wednesday. And also follow the Adler Planetarium on social media. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.